What's up with all these books?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while since I posted anything. Life happened. I went to California and went to Disneyland with my family. Came back, my son was visiting for spring break, so 3.5 weeks of me not really reading anything and not really having any time to post a video. But it's not what's important. Today we're back, and I am actually very excited because what I did is I read some books that I don't typically read. So I typically am more into the fantasy. Most of them happen to be romances just because, that's how it goes. But I don't really read historical fiction. I don't really read regular, just plain romances. And I did this time. I actually had the idea for International Women's Day, which was last month. And I'm just getting to this now. But all of these books were either written by women or have the main character is a woman in honor of International Women's Day. So even though I'm a month late, happy International Women's Day. So in my experiment, I had one book that was very, but I did have at least one 5-star. I had one amazing book. I read my first Colleen Hoover book, so I was excited to venture into her whole world of madness, but I enjoyed myself. So here's all of the books that I read for this experiment. All right, so the first book on our list today is 100 Days of Sunlight by Abbie Emmons. Abbie Emmons actually has a YouTube channel where she breaks down the science of writing, and I've watched her YouTube channel because I have so many book ideas and I don't even know where to start. But she breaks down how the intro should be, certain words you shouldn't use and stuff. So she has this whole playlist of all of these different things that writers should be doing and should be knowing. So when I found out she had a book, I was like, okay, I want to read this because I want to see if she knows what she's talking about. And she does. She does. This book is a romance, just no fantasy at all, just, regular world kind of romance. And I was hooked instantly. It's about this girl who gets into a car accident and she loses her sight. But it's a temporary, like the doctors say, it's a temporary blindness, and they tell her it's going to take up to 3 months. So she's literally counting down 100 days of her not being able to see. And she's a writer. She writes poetry. She has a blog. She has friends online and things of that nature. So her grandparents, who she lives with because her parents are gone, she lives with her grandparents, decide that, she's going through something hard and she can't write anymore. So they want to hire somebody to write her poetry for her. So she can just tell them what to write and they'll write it out and she can still get her poetry done and stuff like that. So they put the ad in the paper. The granddaughter is not happy about it, so they retract it. Before they retract it, someone who works at the newspaper sees it and comes over to their house and offers to help. The two cute little adorable kids fall in love. She gets her sight back towards the end of the book, and come to find out that the boy that was helping her actually was in an accident himself, and he doesn't have legs from the knees down. So the reason he wanted to help her in the first place was because he understood something being taken away. So it was just a nice little cute story about two kids that have similar understanding of something, and they came together and they fell in love, and it was cute. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a very cute story. I would definitely, read another romance again. This might be something I might enjoy. So, yeah. All right, next book on our list is The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina. And my Puerto Rican side is going to fail me right now. I'm sorry, Mom. I apologize that, I'm failing you right now. But The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina is more of a Encanto. If you liked Encanto and you like murder mysteries and you like zombie roosters, you're gonna love this. It's perfect for you. So pretty much what's going on is Orquidea Divina is dying. So she sends out these letters to her whole family, all of her kids and grandkids, saying, I'm dying, come and get your inheritance. So they all get their letters not from the postal service because she has magic, so birds deliver them or they just appear because, she's got it like that. And they are like, okay, it's time. They're yeah. So they say, okay, it's time. We got to go. We all got to get back together, family reunion. So they get back to the house, and the entire house is just covered in vines. They can't get in. And they all try to break in. They all try to do this stuff. They get axes. They pull at it, and they just can't get in the house. And then one of the grandkids pretty much just says, well, why don't we just ask it nicely? No one thought of that. This whole time they've had magic in their family, no one thought, hey, let's just ask it nicely, except for the kids. So the kids asked it nicely, and the vines open up. They get in the house, and Orquidea is half tree from her waist down. She's just tree. The roots are going into the ground. Her fingernails are like turning into branches and stuff, and she's dying with this magic. Then she explains to the family that there's obviously been magic with their family and she's tried to protect it, but now that she's dying, someone is going to come and try and take their magic, because this whole time she was using her magic to keep them away from the family. But in this magic, she couldn't tell them or explain to them who was coming, because it was part of the deal that she was banned from talking about them, and it came with the protection. So the kids are just like, I don't know what's happening, you can't explain it to us. And she's just like, no. Turns into this giant tree, and they're all just kind of left like, well, what the hell. 7 years go by, and then a lot of the family members just start dying. The ones that aren't dead yet start to see this person stalking them. So they all come back to the house, and in that them coming back to the house, they start piecing together all of the things. I don't want to spoil it, but it becomes this magical murder mystery thing, and it's really cool. On paper, I should have absolutely loved it, and I liked it, but it just kind of seemed to me like it was overhyped, and that's probably where my disappointment was, because so many people were saying how great the book was, and it was really good, but it wasn't fantastic. So I personally gave it 3 stars, but I understand if you gave it 4 or even 5. Like, I get it. Just there was something about it. I think it was the pacing, because in one chapter, Orquidea had just died, and then in like another chapter, 7 years had passed. And they kind of explained what happened in those 7 years, but it was just like such a huge jump in between a couple of chapters, not just that one. A couple of chapters is just like 6 months goes by, then, a year goes by, and then 5 years goes. So it's just like, I don't know, maybe that whole thing could have been fleshed out a little more. But other than that, I thought it was great. The ending was satisfactory. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad by any means. So yeah, so I give that one 3 stars, and yeah, that was that. All right, so the next book is When Women Were Dragons. Now, this one had me written all over it. I've loved dragons ever since I was little. Like, I have dragon tarot cards. I've got dragon notebooks. Like, I have dragons tattooed on my back. Ever since I was little, I've loved dragons my entire life. So what this book is about is there's this mass dragoning. For some reason, only women can turn into dragons. And the government and news stations, everything's trying to shut it down so that way nobody knows that women can turn into dragons. So it keeps flopping back and forth from this story about this girl from when she's a child to when she's like a full-grown adult. And it flops from that story to scientific research and scientific evidence of these different phenomena, of these different events that are happening with women turning into dragons. So the basis of it is there's this one day, I forgot the year, but 642,000 642,987 women all at the same time just turned into dragons. And then the government is just like, no, we can't show this, we can't experience this, we can't, let the world know that women have this power. And I only gave it a 2-star. I was very disappointed in it. And the reason I was disappointed in it is because even though the premise is amazing, it went so far into the extreme feminist side that it completely took down the foundation that was set. Now, I get it. Feminism, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but when it's taken all the way to the extreme, to the point that all men are evil, all men are the enemy, that doesn't make, no, that's just dumb. Okay. There are men that do stupid things. Not every single man is like that. In this book, every single guy is just horrible, stupid, dumb. And it just started to kill it for me, of this overkill of just men are bad, men are bad, men are bad. And at one point, there was a woman, one of the main characters actually, who hit her husband in front of her nieces, talked down on him, threatened his life, called him stupid, saying that he's compared to children, all this stuff. And it's supposed to be okay because a woman said it, but later on when there's talking about how men are saying that to women, it's supposed to be bad. So it's like you can't have both. It can't be okay for someone to do it, and it can't be not okay for someone else to do it. It's just not okay on both sides. So even though I love dragons, and even though I was super excited about this book, that took so much away from my enjoyment of the book that I only gave it a 2-star. It is a good book, though. The main characters are kind of meh. One character, Beatrice, is this little girl, and she is just, I would want her as a daughter. She is just hilarious. She has a crazy imagination. She's 100% knows who she is, and she's just growing up, and all the adults are learning from her because she's just in her own little space, in her own world, and she's fantastic. And reading the book for her alone is worth it. But you do have to go into that knowing that if that doesn't bug you, then you'll like it. If that doesn't bug you, then you'll like it. But for me, it was just too much of men are the enemy, but we can do it because we're women and it's acceptable. And that's just me personally, didn't really like that. Moving on to the next book, which is The Lost Apothecary. And this is a historical fiction book. And I think up until now, I've only read one other historical fiction book, which was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I think that's the only one that I've read so far. So this is still a new genre to me. And it's about a woman who is an apothecary. Her mom had a shop. Her mom passed away, and she started to run the shop. Well, a man came in saying that he needed a potion and things like medicine for his sister, who had just had a baby, and she was having fevers and stuff like that. So he gave her the medicine. The guy comes back and says, "Oh, thank you so much." They start, having adult relations. And come to find out that girl was not his sister, it was his wife. So he was just a cheating scumbag. So the wife comes and confronts the apothecary. They talk about it, and she says, "Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It's not the first time he's not been faithful. So what you got that we can just kill him?" And the apothecary was like, "I like your style." She gave her a dose of medicine that could kill him. And in the paper 2 days later found out that she found out he was dead. So she started this now apothecary where she does poisons and things for women to get away from men. And this, even though it is very feminist like the other one was, it makes sense because the men are specifically doing wrong to women, and then the women are going to this apothecary to get it handled. It's not every single man is the worst thing in the world. It's these specific men did things wrong, and we need to get it handled. That 100% behind. I get it, and that I really enjoyed. So the story flops back and forth from this apothecary, which was like in the 1700s, to the present day of this woman who is actually in London because she was going to celebrate her 10-year anniversary, and she found out her husband was cheating on her, so she took the trip by herself. So she has a history major, or was going to go to school to have a history major and things like that. So she loves all things history, old maps, buildings, all that stuff. So she goes here and she goes mudlarking, and she finds a vial in the ocean with just a bear on it. So she goes to the, she does research at the library. The girl tells her that it could have been from this apothecary, and then she starts putting the pieces together of this woman who was killing bad men. So it goes back and forth from the present and then, and it's just, it fleshes out into an amazing story. It's 3 different point of views. It's the apothecary, the little girl that helps the apothecary, she's like her assistant kind of thing, and the girl in the present day. So it's 3 different point of views jumping around, and it was executed perfectly. I loved it. The writing was fantastic. The characters were so good. I gave it 4 stars. It was really close to being 5 stars, very close, but I gave it 4. And yeah, that to me was what When We Were Dragons should have been. Like, if it had more of that balance, then what When Women Were Dragons would have been much better. But this one executed that whole vibe perfectly. Next book is my very first Colleen Hoover book, and I know she gets a lot of how do I put this nicely? She gets a lot of stank for certain books that she's written, and I was not going to read any of those books because I've watched enough people roast it, and I've watched enough reviews on those books to know that those weren't for me. But one did catch my eye because I wanted to read at least one of her books, and one of them was All Your Perfects. I don't hear anybody talk about it, and I was like, okay, that's a good thing. If no one's talking about it, they only want to talk about it to, pretty much paint a bad image of her. So no one's talking about this one, so obviously this one's not that bad. So I went into it. Another romance, plain romance, no fantasy involved, and I greatly enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's about a couple who meet in very strange circumstances, and it flops back and forth from when they met to them being married for 7 years. So it flops back and forth between that time frame. So when they met, the woman in the relationship was actually engaged to somebody, and she went to his apartment to surprise him, and she found a man standing outside her door. Well, the man standing outside her door would later be her husband, because both of their other partners were having sex in the apartment, so they were both being cheated on in that moment. So they sat outside the house while the other 2 were, getting it in, so to speak, wink, wink. And they were just like, yep, this sucks. The situation's insane, blah, blah, blah. And then, 8 months, 7, 8 months later down the road, they run into each other. They go on a date. That's how they get married. So what's happening now is they're having trouble in their marriage. They want to have a baby. It's not really working out. So the woman is getting upset. The man is feeling, neglected and things of that nature, and it just spirals out of control into a bunch of drama and madness. Now, the reason why I like this book is because it talks about the realness of relationships. Because once you get past a certain time frame in a relationship, it's not always fun. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's, a lot of fun. Sometimes it's a lot of fights. But this paints all of those. It paints the beginning to the end, to the middle, to the end, them trying to work on things, them failing at working at things, them trying again, almost giving up. It's just such a realistic way of painting a relationship that I greatly enjoyed it. So even though Colleen Hoover gets a lot of bad rap for a lot of her other books, this one, All Your Perfects, I think is great. I gave it 4 stars. And last but not least, the only 5-star I gave out of all of these books, and the first 5-star in a while actually, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Oh my Jesus. This book was absolutely amazing. I don't even know where to start. It's just about this woman who, it goes through her whole life from when she was little to when she became a movie star to when she became the top movie star. All the people, all the shady back end, like, oh, you have to dye your hair. You're Hispanic. You can't look Hispanic. You have to look more white. You have to do this. You have to dress a certain way. All of that. And she just takes it in stride. She's just like, okay. And at some point in the book, she even says, I haven't had much sex that I enjoyed. If you define sex as like, being intimate and enjoying it, I didn't have a lot of sex that I enjoyed. But if you use sex and getting what you wanted and getting to a place that you wanted, then I haven't had a lot of sex that I haven't enjoyed. She understands that she did everything that she had to do and doesn't regret it because it made her into the person that she knew she needed to be. And a lot of women might look at that and be like, oh, well, she just used her body, blah, blah, blah. Yes, she did. But it got her to exactly where she needed to be. And when she got there, she did everything the right way. Yes, it was a lot of drama. Yes, it was a lot of relationships that she had to give up, a lot of, family members that she had to give up. But to me, that's just, obviously I'm not a famous movie star. I don't know, but I hear stories about that all the time that, like, that's what Hollywood does. If you want to be in Hollywood, you have to jump through all those hoops to do it anyway. So going into it, knowing that I have to do all of this stuff because this is what I said I was going to do, and the fact that she changes everybody's life as she meets them in certain areas, it's like, wow, this whole book, there was nothing wrong. I couldn't think of anything wrong with this book. This book was absolutely fantastic, and I want more of this. If you know any books that are similar to this one, please put them in the comments because I need more of stuff like this. So that's going to be it for today's video. The experiment went over pretty well. I only had one book that I did not enjoy. The rest of them, I think, I think I could read some more romances and historical fictions and definitely some more Evelyn Hugo. I need more of that, 100%. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.